it's Annette and welcome to Cotto Verde. Today I thought I'd show you some of my seedlings that have succumbed to damping off. It is the dreaded seedling disease and I'm going to show you what they look like, and I'm going to talk about what it is and how you can prevent it happening to your seedlings and what to do if yours have got damping off happening right now. First, I thought I'd explain what damping off is. Damping off is a disease that attacks your seedlings when they are at the most vulnerable. So damping off is caused by various molds and fungi, and they've got some long names which if I can find them I'll put up on the screen, but you don't need to know their names. What you need to know is that it's a mold and fungus, and molds and fungus thrive in wet, damp, dark, cold conditions. So your seedlings are looking for the exact opposite of what the mold and fungus are looking for. They're looking for a warm environment, they want a lot of nice airflow, and they want to be moving around in the breeze a bit, and they don't want to be cold or dark. They need lots of light, and they don't want to be wet. So you don't want your seedlings sitting in very wet, compacted soil that retains a lot of moisture. The reason the fungus and the mold can attack your seedlings when they're very young, and it does happen to most seedlings. If it's going to happen, it'll happen when when they've just germinated at the very young stage, maybe when they've just only got cotyledons or their first set of true leaves. Sometimes, as in my case, it will happen when they're a little bit older than that, but I'll show you that in a minute. So the reason it happens when they're much younger is because at their very initial stage, when they've just started to germinate, their stem it's kind of like a straw, so it's just really got the outside, and so it's very vulnerable because it's not particularly strong or thick yet. And as the seedling gets older, the stem becomes more dense and compacted and less like a straw. So that's one of the reasons why it's easier at the very young stage for this mold and fungus to create the damping off in your seedlings. So you're probably wondering what the cure is. Well, I hate to say it, but if you've got damping off, then there really isn't a cure. The best thing to do, as soon as you see that your seedlings have got damping off, is to either bin the lot if they've all got it, or if you can save any, if some of them haven't been attacked yet, take them out of that soil and put them into some clean, sterilized soil that isn't too wet. Put them in a bright area space that's much warmer. You won't necessarily save them because sometimes the fungus or mold will have attacked them and it just won't be visible yet. So it may be that your entire tray succumbs to it. But whatever you do, separate your diseased seedlings from any other seedlings that you may have in other trays. So just move them to a different place, get rid of them. Sometimes with plants like tomato plants or other young plants that you can propagate by taking the top off, like sweet peas for instance, you can save your seedlings if they've grown sufficiently by nipping off the top where it's not diseased and then sitting that in a jar of water and letting it root, and hopefully you'll then be able to plant that and save your seedling that way. That really is the only time that you can save your seedlings at all. Some people say you can sprinkle cinnamon on top of your compost, and that is definitely a preventative measure, but it is not a cure. It is really tough, I know. It happens to loads of people though, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some methods or best practices that will help you not to have damping off disease. The best things to do to make sure you don't get damping off disease is to make sure, firstly, that you use sterilized pots, because you don't want to use something where maybe there is already some mold and fungus in that environment. So if you use clean pots, then probably that will help you to prevent any of this mold and fungus growing and attacking your seedlings. So the best way to sterilize your pots, if you've used them before, is just to give them a scrub or a wash and then clean them with a 10% bleach solution. A 10% bleach solution is literally just 1/10 bleach and 9/10 water. Mix it up and clean your pots and trays with that solution. You could dunk it for like half an hour or something and then leave them to dry, and then you'll know that you've sterilized those pots and trays. So the other thing you can do is to buy shop-bought seed starting compost, and the reason that you do this is because that seed starting compost will have been sterilised by the manufacturer, and so you know from the get-go that you don't have any of these pathogens in that soil. Don't choose garden compost to sow your seeds because you really are asking for trouble. If you do that, there's loads of very healthy microbes in our soil, but there will also be ones that might attack your seedlings. And don't use spent compost, like compost that you've used for something else. The best place to put that is on your beds as mulch or on your compost heap. The other thing that you should do is make sure that you don't overwater your seedlings. The best way to do this is to bottom water your seedlings. So either put the tray or the pots into a vessel containing some water and let them sit there for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then take them out and let them drain, so that your compost and your seedlings wick up what they need, and then they're not submerged in like puddles of water. So make sure that your seed trays or your pots have sufficient drainage. You need to make sure they've got holes in the bottom for any water to drain out. The other thing that you should do is, once you've watered your seedlings, is to make sure that they're kept warm enough and in the right temperatures that suit them. So a lot of things can be sown during the winter, and you can grow them as cold starts, but a lot of plants actually would do much better in a warmer environment, even if that is an unheated greenhouse or a cold frame. And obviously you need to make sure that your plant has a lot of light. The more light it has, the happier it's going to be, and the stronger it will grow, and it will be able to fight off any of these pathogens. So the other thing you can do is sprinkle your compost with cinnamon. Cinnamon is an antibacterial, anti-fungi helper. If you sprinkle a little bit on the surface of your soil, I've never done this, but this is what I've read, this is going to help you fight off those pathogens. Obviously, the other thing you could do is make sure, the top surface of your soil is kept drier. So by bottom watering, that's going to really help, but you could do that by sprinkling some vermiculite on the top, or, just make sure that the area around your little seedlings is not soaking wet. You're probably wondering how to recognize damping off disease, and I'm going to show you. So this is a healthy, or 3 healthy sweet pea seedlings. They're, upright, wobbling around in the breeze. They're not leggy. The compost is slightly moist, but it's not damp, it's not dripping out of the bottom or anything like that. And these are very happy. In fact, I think I can see a 4th one there in the corner. So this is actually a hardy perennial called Chloranthus. So it's like a nice sort of creamy green coloured sweet pea, and it will come back every year. And that's what these look like, and they are healthy seedlings. Now I'm going to show you an unhealthy seedling. This is an unhealthy seedling. Now, just because your sweet peas have fallen over, and the sweet peas are just an example, any seedling can get damping off, but I'm talking specifically about sweet peas because sweet peas, once they get quite leggy, will fall over. But the reason I know that these have got damping off is because right here at the very base, you can see that rather than the stem being nice and green and, well, these aren't even firm anymore, right at the bottom they've gone brown and thin and just pretty ugly. And they're floppy and bending over. And in fact, the leaves are very unhappy. And this one here has died completely. And I'm not even sure I can save these, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top half off where they're not diseased. I'm going to pinch it off there, and then I'm going to sit them in a glass of water and see whether I can root them and help them that way. But this bit of the plant here, this is never going to recover, and so the connection between your plant and the roots is gone forever, and in fact the roots will be diseased too. So this plant is no good. These plants, none of these are any good at all. So here's an example of a sweet pea that's actually still healthy, but it's kind of fallen over because it's not using the support that I gave it, this little twig here. But these seedlings are not brown at the bottom. Their stems still feel quite firm. The leaves are a little bit sad, but I'll explain a bit more about that. In fact, I'll explain it now. The reason that my sweet peas have got damping off disease is totally my fault. It is down to error from the grower. So I sowed these sweet peas about a month or two ago, I can't remember, but I did a video about it, so you'll find it on my YouTube channel. And they germinated and grew away really happily, and then I slowly acclimatized them to the outdoor and I hardened them off. Sometime in November, I think, I put them in my cold frames and they were very happy there. The problem with my cold frames is they're not in a particularly sunny area during the winter months, so the sun just doesn't quite get over the wall and the trees sufficiently to provide enough light for anything that I'm growing in the cold frames. So what I did was I moved my sweet peas to my little zippy greenhouses. These are just like little temporary plastic greenhouses with a wooden frame inside, and I put the sweet peas in there and they were very happy in there. The temperatures weren't ideal. They maybe got down to about 2 degrees at night. So that's, I'm talking about centigrade here. So it got down to about 2 degrees at night, and I think what happened was the soil was too wet and it was too cold. And even though I'd moved them into these greenhouses where they get more light, I just don't think it was sufficient. And I think what happened was I exposed them to all this cold when the compost was wet from a feed or from watering, and then I just didn't check on them. So I maybe left them for a week or two, and then I had to go away for a while, and then we had Christmas, and so I just haven't checked on them for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And what happened in that time is that they were too wet and too cold and didn't get enough light, and they've got damping off disease. And it's as simple as that. I created an atmosphere for these pathogens to thrive and for my seedlings to be susceptible to the horrors. Pretty much my whole tray seems to have some sort of damping off, and the ones that haven't got damping off disease, that isn't apparent yet, they seem to be very floppy. This could be from the very hard cold snap we had, where it got down to like -7 degrees centigrade and we had a lot of snow and ice. I think that that was probably the beginning of the end for them. Okay, so I've got a little vase of water here, and what I'm going to do is use some florist tape to make a sort of support. So florist tape comes in all sorts of colours. I've just got a green one here, and I'm just going to make a support, but also to separate the different varieties, because I'm probably going to have more than one variety in each vase. And then what I'm going to do is take some of my less sickly sweet peas, maybe this one that I showed you. So this one is called Gwendolyn, and this one is only just starting to brown down there, so I'm going to take it, I think, just below a leaf node. So there's a little leaf node there, and I'm going to take off anything that might end up in the water, like that. And I'm just going to pop it in there, so it's kind of floating, it's not touching the bottom. And then this one, I think I can save at this point here. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to just take off the leaves that will be in the water, because we don't want leaves in the water. And this one here. And I'm going to pop that in there and see whether I can save them. So I've just rinsed the tag off because I didn't want any of the diseased compost to be in the water. So let me just do another sickly one for you. What does this one look like? So I think I can probably save this. This is Mrs. Bernard Jones. I'm going to rinse the tag, and then I'm going to chop this below the leaf node again, take off the extra leaves that I don't need, and pop it in there. So you can see, you know, this is, I mean, these just look so sickly. That's practically, I don't think I can save that one or that one. So one Mrs. Bernard Jones I'll save. And then let's see whether I can regrow these and get them to root and save them maybe. That is the story of damping off my sweet peas, and hopefully it's given you some pointers so that you can see when you've got damping off disease or whether you've got it. But more importantly, it's hopefully given you some pointers to make sure that you don't get damping off disease. I'm really lucky because this was just an autumn sowing of sweet peas, and I can definitely sow some more mid-February. which I will do, but I'm also going to see whether I can save any of these by putting them in a glass of water, and I'll keep you updated. So if you're interested in whether that's successful or not, then do subscribe to my channel. If you've enjoyed this video and you think other people would find it useful, then please, do give me a thumbs up, because that helps tell YouTube to show it to more people. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. So the other thing that you can do is you can sprinkle your compost with something like cinnamon. So cinnamon is Simperman.